And a man had been dead 4 days stood on his feet. A Christian Science woman, excuse me if I hurt your feeling, I don't mean to. A Christian Science woman right from this church met me out there one day and she said, Mr. Branham, she said, I like your preaching, but there's one thing you do too much on it. I said, what's that? Said, you brag too much on Jesus. I said, I hope that's all he's got against me. She said, you make him divine. See, they don't believe he was divine. They believe he was just an ordinary man, good teacher, philosopher. Said, you make him divine, and he wasn't divine. I said, oh, yes, he was. She said, if I'll prove to you by your own Bible he's not divine, will you believe it? I said, my Bible said so. I believe the Word. That's who he is. And she said, in St. John the 11th chapter, when Jesus went down to the grave of Lazarus, the Bible said he wept. I said, well, that's got to do with it. She said, well, that showed he wasn't divine. I said, you just fail to see who the man was. He was both God and man. There's a man weeping when he's weeping for their sorrow. But when he stood and said, Lazarus, come forth! And a man had been dead 4 days, stood on his feet again. That was more than a man. Yes, sir. Yes, indeed. And I've often made the expression, when he come down off the mountain that night hungry, he was a man. He was hungry the next morning, he was a man. But when he took 2 biscuits and 5 fish and fed 5,000, taking up 7 baskets, that was more than a man. Yes, sir. He was a man on the cross when he cried, my God, has thou forsaken me. When he cried, give me a drink, and they give him vinegar and gall, he was a man crying. But on Easter morning, when he broke every seal of death, hell, in the grave, and rose up, he was more than a man. He was a man that night laying on the back of that little boat where he's out there with the disciples, and 10,000 devils of the sea swore they'd drowned him. Out there in a little ship like a bottle stopper out there like that. He was so tired, didn't even wake him up. He was a man when he was asleep. But when he put his foot on the rail of the boat and looked up and said, peace, be still, and the winds and the waves obeyed him, that was more than a man. It was God. Oh, one of the poets said, living he loved me, dying he saved me, buried he carried my sins far away, rising he justified freely forever. Someday he's coming, oh glorious day. Yes, sir. Go beyond the camp. I don't care what it costs. This consecrated cross I'll bear till death shall set me free. Then go home, a crown to wear, for there's a crown for me. Closing, I'll say this. I was reading a story some time ago on a judge. He's a just man, a good man. He loved.